What is up, guys? Back for another video, and in today's video I wanted to take a look at all the trees in this area. These were buried with a ton of snow. You can see the soil was so much weight, it's starting to crack a bit. Today's very warm. It's actually about 51 degrees, but the wind can still brisk you. Anyway, the tree here, this one, let me shut my door. I don't want my windows open, but I don't want. So this tree, which fell at all, I had to cut it because it was going crazy. So I cut them all, just stumped them off. There was about 16 limbs here when we first got in the area. I'm gonna put this in 0.5. About 16 limbs coming up there when we got in the area. So I cut all those and I cut them all off at the top. And this one has shot out a bunch of limbs. If we zoom in there and take a look at that, look at all the limbs that came off there in the first year, and then last year it grew all the shoots off those limbs. So you can see those little stems that come off. If you look at that closer, it's basically just these little scions that come off of this main shoot. And these ones here are very, very close together, as you can see. So I'm gonna do my best to keep both these alive. I don't know what one to favorite though, because maybe even that one on the ground, because this here one has some crazy stuff going on. It's not the original tree. That one's the original tree still. So we're gonna have to see what I choose to do with these. Worst case, if I have to, if they really start competing, I'll have to slice the side of this tree off, just all the limbs except the main trunk there, and maybe take off that low-hanging limb, and they should survive together. I know aspens can survive really close together, so I'm hoping that's what we'll be able to work with these here. But we'll just have to, I got dirt all over me. That thing is still soft, guys. But we'll just have to see how these turn out. Either way, the buds on these trees are very, very healthy. Look at that. We put it in the 0.5 so you guys can see this here. The buds are just ready to go. If we look at the top bud there too, it's ready to go. So, and that's the same with the one up there. There's no rot. It's sturdy in the ground there. Look at that. So that's gonna be a nice one. This here was we transplanted these. That one died. This here one though, I wanted to show you this quick. Let's just jump to this. This one here is still green. It's got some signs of a little bit of maybe winter burn or something like that up here in the stem, but other than that, it's still pretty green. So this one might have a chance. Because like I said, this one over here, we moved in 2023. And it is actually still going green, and it produced a couple little leaves last year. So we'll see. The leader died. It all died back, all the new buds, but some of them actually produced little growths last year. So we'll see what happens. Maybe that's gonna allow more growth this year. We'll see what happens with that one. So that's a good sign. This one here, the same thing. It snapped and kind of broke. I had to cut it. Now it's doing a bunch of limbs. Not in the same way I wanted it on that one too, though. So what I'm planning on doing with that other one there is maybe try and do the same thing. It didn't leave little nodes. Now, when I cut this, guys, when I had to cut it, and when I did that, I left these nodes right here. See those? And out of those shot these nice large stems, because, I actually left something there. Well, on this one, it fell and broke. I couldn't leave much there. So maybe I can kind of supplement these, like this one here. If I was to cut that up to a bud, it might actually supplement that. But we're gonna let some of these healthy big ones grow, and I'm gonna cut some of these smaller ones off again this year. We're gonna just leave a couple stems on that. Let's see if I get this camera going, just so it kind of looks similar to the structure of this tree over here. I think that would look pretty nice, because I love the look of this tree, how it came. Guys, it used to be so small, I used to take a dog leash and be able to put it over the top of this tree. And I actually had the dog here while I went and did something, and the dog was pulling the tree. Well, think about how easy that would be now. That whole top, just take that off, and that's what that tree was. So these trees, in 2 years, these trees are pretty vigorous. They grow pretty quick, especially because they're just connecting systems out of this bigger aspen here. So that's what's kind of nice. Over here, I take a lot of cuttings from all this stuff, but didn't get as much of a growth this year out of those. Anyway, those are those. Just gonna have to see what's going on here, but everything's real healthy. A lot of times this one grew a lot, but let me show you what's even more impressive. Obviously here we've got the snow pile. It was very large. It's melting, leaving this tree and stuff a lot of water. Even though it doesn't look real wet, all that water is absorbing into the ground, a little bit into the air, but other than that, most of it's, so. This tree though is the amazing, insane thing. This is a sucker out of this tree that was cut down years ago. For many years, it just kept growing higher and higher. But I said, let's get in here and whack it down. I whacked it down, and then it all grew again. But I was like, when I was taking cuttings, summer came and I never took ones, because all these you see on the ground here, all these, those are all shoots that came out of this in the 2023 year. So throughout the 2023 winter into the 2024 spring, I took cuttings. And I miraculously, I'm so glad I didn't get to one cutting. I said, I'm gonna leave that one just in case I need it. And then I was like, oh shoot, I might need that soon. I'll get ready to take it. I never took it. And then it started blooming. So I was like, well, let's just leave it. It's already blooming. And I'm so glad I did. Because when I was talking about that, it was only like here in height, along with all the other stems. And just last year, it put on a lot of growth. So all those side shoots, and that's a nice, large, very large. I'm actually gonna stand up here a little bit. Very large tree. I'm not even as high as that standing on the snow pile. And, well, what I had to do, you can see how it's blowing in the wind there. See how it's pretty sturdy? Wow. And let me show you this. It's a little bit bent. See that? It goes up and bends over a little bit. I love that structure. All of the stems stand up in the same direction as the sun. And what I had to do was I took a stake, which isn't over here anymore, but I took a little bungee and a stake, and I pounded it in the ground and staked it up, because it was leaning, guys, it was leaning downwards. It was actually drooping downwards, where it was getting to the point where it was damaging the stem because there was too much weight on the little stem. Once I had corrected it, it was continuing to do the same thing throughout till like July. But then after the leaf growth, it must have realized it needed to grow the stem, so the stem started to enlarge, and now it's holding it up. The reason the stem is so large on this tree is because it was so unstable. The tree will focus what it needs most. If it's stable, it's going to focus growth. If it isn't stable, it's going to focus, obviously, rooting and the largation of the stem. Look at how large the stem on this is. This thing's 2 years old. 2 years old. It's that large. That is a large aspen stem. You can see how it erupts out of the ground there. I made a video on this one. It was a little bigger. It was the bigger one of the bunch, but there was a bunch around it again, just like they were that first year. So I cut all those out, but I shouldn't have let them grow because it's starting to kind of notch into there, but I think that's going to just kind of cover those around. You can see already the root flare of this tree. This tree created its own root flare, kind of. You can see that. That's amazing right there. So it rooted itself in this cluster. It's going to take all those out. If I continue, these are going to stress it maybe a little bit, but overall, this one's so much bigger, it's probably just going to take out all these or create a little structure around them within the following years. But what I'm going to do is not let those grow too much. I let those grow too much, they're going to keep pushing into it. I'll be whacking those every month in the summertime, probably in June, every 2 weeks, just to keep this the centerpiece. Again, if we look at the buds are really good. And this is that one interesting bud on here. It's a sideways bud on the stem there, growing up towards that sun. A lot of the stems on this tree are doing that, because that's like this one here where it's curving up. The stem wants to grow up. Next year, it's going to elongate these stems, and off these stems will come more stems. I might have to start doing some thinning on these trees because they are getting pretty crazy. But yeah, these are amazing. That's amazing. And it's going to slow its growth as it gets a little larger. But that's normal. Anyway, these big aspens, they're looking great as well. The pruning still stands on those. I did a little bit of a fix in the summertime just to get those under control. But the main things, yeah, are all the trees in that area that are just going to be amazing for the summertime. I'm excited to watch these. This one here is scaring me because of the rot possibility that could happen at the top of the stem. Another thing I want to show you. Look at this. Look at the top. You see how there's that small, very small little stem coming out of the bigger limb on the top? Let's see if I can get the light to shine on that better. The little teeny stem, well, that's how big that huge stem right here it was before. And then once I cut it like this, only the portion, not the flare, what do they call that? The bark ridge section survived, and that produced that large growth, which stems off of that small one that used to exist. So that's pretty interesting. Over many years, that's just going to take that away. So when you cut a portion of a stem, say right here, it'll die back to the nearest bud if there's no other bud on top. So that is pretty interesting. So say I cut right here, there's a bud, but there's a bud here. say I cut off right here but didn't include this bud, this part would survive up to this bud, as it's not focusing on it very well, would survive up to that bud, but other than that, it would just die and shrink, but it would produce a stem out of that bud. That bud is meant for just a small stem, but if it detected no stems left, it's going to produce one of those large stems where it's going to grow pretty rapidly. So that's pretty cool on the tree there. Over here, this is the neighbor's tree. They had this big one cut down, and I found this interesting. Nothing happened for many years until just randomly this big, huge top basically shot out and the tree's trying to replace itself. That's pretty interesting. If you look at the structure of that, that's a large trunk coming out of there. That one's got a lot of energy stored as well. You got to keep that in mind. Here's our water bucket. I do think it's got a little leak though, so I'll have to see if I can get a new one of those, because that's where I fill the bucket for the water in the trees over here. If those survive, like I said, it was stressful on them, tore a bunch of roots out, and that's why that one died. This one though, it survived the summer, and that one over there is still going a couple years later, so that's why I have a little hope. Let's go over and take a look at the willows. We'll just walk over, but I want to show you guys a couple trees. Let's see. I guess I really don't have to show you guys those. But let's just look over here, kind of just at what's going on over here. Not as much crazy stuff here. These are just the other aspen, which is limbed up. I kind of regretted my decision on limbing it up that far. I wish I had left it lower, but now that I did it, I'm just leaving it. Actually, I don't always regret it. I love the large trunk structure of that tree. It's still something that stands out to me, and I actually kind of take back what I said about regretting it. When in the summer, when you're looking at the foliage, it was nice to have it low, but it still hangs. It's still an amazing looking tree, and I love the foresty structure of the trunk. I put this in 0.5. You can see how long the trunk is from the ground up. I like that look of that tree. If I keep that clean, it's gonna stay like that as it gets larger, and then it won't have anything like this. It's gonna be a straight up long trunk. But you can see the bottom here. This has been like this for years. Looks like it took on some rot, or is actively rotting. It could be. In this area, yeah, it's a little bit coming off there, but overall it's a healthy tree. So it's got a bunch of buds set. You can see the back structure of it here. That's the thing with aspens, sometimes the trees, they just, areas of them start to rot at points. You can see there was a scar there from a cut that's it's healing over, so it is healing pretty actively there. Something happened there though, whether this tree kind of fell, it's a little bit bent, maybe it fell or something happened there, but it's got a big root system. It's called a rhizome. So this root feeds this tree, and then it comes out over here. So this root comes out of that tree right over there. That tree supplied this root. I think this tree came because of the stress this tree experienced. They cut these trees really badly. Look how much they cut them. And then that is like, uh-oh, where's my top? So it took this root, and it was a teeny root, and it came under, but now it's huge. And then it connected, and a little teeny sprout came out. It probably got mowed over 3 or 4 times, but I bet the person who mowed here at the time just disregarded mowing for a bit, and it got big enough and they just mowed around it. Somehow miraculously a stem grew, a rhizome out of this root structure grew, and here this tree stands today. This was not planted. You can see the root right there. It circles around and it kind of circles in, and it creates this. Out of this then shoots the other root, which probably goes, I don't know where that one would go. Either it wraps back around or it goes all the way through over here to the next tree. It could go anywhere. There's not really any suckers that appear here though, so that one was kind of crazy how it just randomly kind of sprouted. Most of the suckers appear over there. But yeah, that one's, I do like the look of that long trunk. I do. That's the feature of that tree, is that long stem. It makes it look like a forest tree, and that's what I said when I filmed the video way back in February. I don't know if I posted that on this channel or not though. I think I did. I think that was a project I posted on here, maybe February 23 or 24 it would have been. Yeah. That was something I did do. It was February 29th, so we're a lot further than that now. It's March 12th, so, but that tree still stands strong and tall. So it's got a big top there. That's the whole tree right there. It's kind of getting pushed in by that tree. If that tree wasn't there, you'd see a lot more of that structure. But then this willow, this just looks amazing. It's very healthy as well. It loses a lot of limbs. You can see on the ground right now, there's lots of limbs. And when we got back from our trip in July, we came here and I just wanted to drive in here. So I drove, got my car fired up. So I was like, let's take it for a drive, get that feel going around in there. I decided to come over here. We had a couple big windstorms, and it almost looked like the whole canopy of this tree was just laying on the ground. But it doesn't matter. It grows so rapidly that you'd think, where's all the, it's gonna be bare. It's not gonna be. These trees produce so much growth, but it's weak. They grow so fast that the growth is pretty weak. So you got to keep that in mind with these willows. But look at the structure of the trunk here. This thing was so low. Again, and some people like that low theme, and I love it. But it became an inconvenience for mowing, weed eating, and stuff like that in the area, driving through. So we just kind of, and bugs fall on your head, so we just kind of lopped it up, and I think it looks amazing like that. You can see the whole structure of the tree here. We kind of step back. It was never pruned, so it's a natural looking tree. Look at that. Try not to trip on snow, but just look at the structure of that tree. That is absolutely something there. It's a really nice structure in a tree. It's a perfect kind of angular. So there's a lot of limbs on there. It holds its leaves for a long time though, even its dead leaves. So it really just lost all its leaves like 2 months ago. Probably back in December. It still had a couple dead ones. So a couple windstorms rake through and that's all that takes them off. But see those olives there still have a little leaves on them. Other than that, those are those. This side of the area. Over here, we had that burn pile, which we still never burned. It includes stuff from when I pruned this tree way back. Pruning of this tree was 100% necessary because we were going to we were going to paint the garage. No one got to it yet. I would have left the tree alone and just cut the top off, but that was why we did that. You can see the stems on it are a little bit kind of scrawny looking, but they put on a lot of growth. A lot of the issue I've seen with this one, though, this is a northern... This one is a northern mountain ash. Never melts back here. It's always consistently shaded. Northern mountain ash tree. It produced some growths upwards of probably 3 feet long. And then some of them broke. You can see it's looking pretty scrawny there. I'll have to come out and maybe cut those. But one of those stems comes from the bottom and it probably extends almost 5 feet up. So I pushed a lot of growth, and that's the issue, is hopefully they can sturdy themselves this year, and just so we can get, it's gonna be a mess, but if I can come through and thin a few limbs, we might get somewhere on it. But just, when those projects come and you gotta do these things, it was starting to move the whole garage a little bit. It was actually growing into it, so it's healthy, it's got a lot of growth. We'll just see what happens though with that one. That's a really nice looking tree, and it looks real nice in the summer. It's really full, and there's gonna be some girdling, but I think we can thin it out. These I had to cut down. Over here, look at all the stems that are growing out of this. You might not see it well until I get on the ground here. Look at all the stems. I'm gonna let that happen. I want a new tree to come up here eventually. Over here too, we've got a new lilac coming up. So that's a whole rhizome. It's another one of them rhizomes. The tree spreads underground, little underground roots that shoot up little stems, and that's where they go. So, but these things were getting very bad. They were starting to, grass was growing up through the tops of the trees, because I'm dead serious. Little grass strands, if you've ever known what those are, little grass strands were growing up through the top of that tree because they wrapped around the stems and grew all the way up. It was a mess. When I went out here and pruned this, I did that before. I did that in July of 23. That was before I had this channel. But I came out here and did that, and I'm dead serious. It looks like more vigorous growth occurring on that side than this side, but we've got growth on all parts with healthy buds. Actually, that growth's a lot healthier in the top tree. So that's why I want to let that come up to rejuvenate. Maybe if that gets big enough one day, I can cut down the structure that's there, because it's getting pretty old. You can tell that by the cracked bark. I don't want to step in there. The cracked bark on those stems, that's an older lilac. If I look at this one, I can show you that better. That's an older lilac getting ready to be really old. You can see they do have some buds and growth. See those little random buds in there, but it's sparse. I mean, it's a little bit more sparse than, you know, there's a lot of dead on these too. So this one though, I had more trouble with because it didn't grow as evenly. So this year we'll see if we can get an even growth out of the ground to leave that. But this one over here, a lot of those are new growth. That's gonna, obviously the root system is strong in these things. Even if that portion's not doing well, the root system is. And when these bloom in the summertime, it's gonna give that tree a lot more power. So we'll see what happens, but that's a fun project to kind of determine. But they're really nice trees, but they were just such a mess. I was getting in there with the pruners guys, and I'm dead serious. I was like struggling. I couldn't chainsaw the grass because it was too thin. I couldn't lop the grass. I had to just grab it and tear it back through the whole canopy of the tree. And I feel like that might have even destroyed some of the buds up in the top tree here because it was wrapped around so deeply. It was crazy. This is swamp. It gets wet in here in the summertime, guys. It's swamp ground. So this was definitely something to experience there. But it was fun to clean up. Even though I think the tops don't perform as well now, we've got this bottomular growth, which is going to take over that. These are trees, these are natural wild things. A lot of this one too does have quite a bit of buds on it. It'll still have green, just mixed in with a couple dead branches in the summertime. Then I can go and prune those out. That'll be projects for this year that'll get done. There's that tree again. I just like how that looks. That big spruce there. Look at the difference in that little teeny tree and that little big spruce. But they blow in the wind so nice that all the stems have healthy buds coming out of them. So these are gonna be fun. We've got new lilac over there too, which could create a whole new tree. But those are those. They looked a lot better than they were, guys. They were extending even further than what's growing there and what's visible. You can almost kind of see the ground and how big they were. This one was the biggest, but it was even wider than that. It was probably, this whole area was covered up in the middle here. You couldn't get through this. This just recovered since I had done it 2 years ago. This one here was a little smaller. This one was the largest, and it's gonna get big again, but it'll be in a more controlled fashion. I think it's gonna be a lot nicer. These were huge, huge. So I was like, well, just for the fun of it, let's get out here and do it. I actually almost cut my finger off on that. With a lopper, not a chainsaw, with a lopper. Here's the burn pile. It's got all those stems for everything we've done there and in the yard over there. But that's that. That's pretty much the whole area here. So anyway, yeah. We take a look at the back real quick, but I think there's not much I've really ever covered back there. So back here resides this, and I guarantee you guys don't want to look any further in there. You can see that sludge. Well, you know what that is? That's full almost to the top of that can with poop covered in a stew. So I don't think you guys want to see that. This is very dangerous. You could fall in there. But over here, these willows, I got to get through a lot of stuff. They produce some growth as well. Let's go take a look. I did a project back here in I think October, maybe even September, late September, but I think it was around October. Pumpkin there is eaten completely. But this tree was pruned. That was well before I had this channel. But these, look at the shoots. Look how green those shoots are that come up. Those are pretty nice. That's a whole fence of shoots right there. That's really nice in the summertime. And it's one of those little things that you don't think of or even really look at. But when you do, it's just one of those cool things. This is a nice area to be in the summer. Because it's just, there's always birds kind of in these willows, and it's just, this is pure swamp across the yard here. So, but you can see these willows are one of those things that you don't appreciate much, you don't look at, but you got to step back and come out here and look at them. That's why I came back here to film this, because I don't really cover these much, but they've got real nice stems. They're weak, obviously, but they've got the fence for support here coming out of these stems that were cut many years ago. We put these cans here like almost 2 years ago now, but these stems are going around through the fence. See that? With a lot of buds set, healthy up to the tips of the buds. So these are just going to keep growing and covering up this fence over time. And, you know, we'll let it do that. They have a natural barrier. Some of the limbs are getting very big. Look at that one down there. Look how large it is. It's actually starting to age so much at the bottom there, it's turning kind of a brown, which is typical. That one comes up, comes up, comes up. Look how high that one goes before it branches off right up in that mess. It's actually the top stem right up there. Goes all the way down here. So, well, and this is only growth from like 4 years ago. Willows grow extremely fast. But yeah, a dead willow pretty much, and it just shoots out a bunch of new bottom growth. That's the power of trees, and I just wanted to come cover this area and show you guys that. Alrighty, and there's the tree update. See that other one over there looks quite nice from here with the multi-trunk structure. We'll see you guys in this area again when the trees are blooming.